We're going to get to the NBA playoffs in just a second. Couple of great games, but first, an NHL team from Canada has fired their head coach.
Paul Maurice, he seems like a nice guy, good with the media, liked by the majority of his players. He was just caught standing on the wrong bench at the wrong time. The Maple Leafs have hinted at change the last few years. Now their actions are proving they actually mean it. Corey Warren reports on the Leafs' first big move since they fired their GM.
It's the first domino falling as Paul Maurice was relieved of his job on Wednesday, a move that clears the deck for a new general manager coming in.
You're going to have new management, you're going to have new coaching, and you're going to have a number of new players. This is the start of a new era for the Maple Leafs. A new regime is coming into place here. And I think when you bring a new regime in, they bring their own people in. It's just common sense in the sport business.
The move is by its timing, but it does come following a meeting with the Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment Board. According to Fletcher, the board approved the move but did not initiate it. In fact, it may have even been initiated by Paul Maurice himself.
Before the end of the season, when Paul and I were out for dinner, we discussed, what could possibly happen here, and he just asked that if it's going to happen, he would prefer it to happen sooner than later. I think in order to be fair to the people who left us today, that they should be given enough time that they can pursue other opportunities.
So now a new general manager will get to pick his own head coach, avoiding the past mistake when John Ferguson Jr. inherited Pat Quinn behind the bench. Fletcher wouldn't comment specifically on the general manager search, but he expects that to be cleared up this summer.
We're moving ahead in a normal fashion, and there will be substantial news coming from the hockey club in the next 6 to 10 weeks. I won't be general manager. I won't be general manager.
And sources tell TSN that the Maple Leafs have asked the Vancouver Canucks permission to speak with the recently fired Dave Nonis. The speculation being that Nonis would be brought in as a general manager for the Maple Leafs next season, and the Leafs would then approach Brian Burke to come in once his contract expires in Anaheim to oversee the entire operation. Corey Warren, TSN, Toronto.
The height of Paul Maurice's NHL coaching career was the 2001-2002 season when he led Carolina to the Stanley Cup final. He hasn't been back to the playoffs since then, missing both times with Toronto. So who's next? The new coach depends on a new GM. As mentioned, Dave Nonis is now among the candidates. More from James Duthie and our NHL and TSN panel.
Thank you, Mike Milbury, Darren Pang, Bob McKenzie. Let's play Connect the Dots, gentlemen, although I'm not sure the dot that represents the firing of Paul Maurice connects anywhere right now. But we know the Toronto Maple Leafs wanted Brian Burke. Anaheim wouldn't let him go. And now they want to talk to Dave Nonis, Brian Burke's former right-hand man. Does it somehow all lead back to Brian Burke eventually?
Yes, I would say so. Although leave it to the Toronto Maple Leafs to fire a head coach and it be the footnote item on the headline of the day. Sorry, Paul. But at the end of the day, the fact that they've asked for permission to talk to Dave Nonis is the biggest headline here in their search for a general manager. The conspiracy theorists amongst us will be saying it's obvious. They want to potentially bring Dave Nonis in to either replace Cliff Fletcher or work alongside him for a period of time and dangle him out there as the carrot to Brian Burke in Anaheim saying, a year from now, Brian, your contract will be up. Your former right-hand man is here. Come join us. And I think that's a plausible and a possible scenario, although I don't think it all has been lined up that neatly just yet.
Michael?
For me, it's pretty clear it does lead back to Brian Burke. Things haven't changed since we talked about this a couple months ago. Brian Burke does not want to be on the West Coast. He does not want to be on the West Coast because of family reasons. He's got his kids out here. He wants to be in Canada if possible because he wants his wife Jennifer to work in broadcasting, which he sometimes does in Vancouver. There's no question at this stage, him not having re-signed with Anaheim brings out all sorts of red flags. He's not going to go back. I think the chances are very slim that he's going back. So if the Leafs want him, be patient. He'll come around.
This seems only fair, though, to Paul Maurice, doesn't it? I mean, you're going to argue it, but Paul Maurice gets removed, gives him enough opportunity. He's got a year left on his contract, but let's face it, career coaches are career coaches. They want to be in the game. This gives him, at least personally, enough time to prepare. Maybe he gets another job. Maybe he gets set up somewhere else. I don't know. I think he's been more than professional and more than prepared and did his thing, and I think this allows him the opportunity to get out there.
I agree with you 100%.
The timing is odd, though, isn't it?
It is. In one sense, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever because Cliff Fletcher's the interim general manager. Why make a big coaching decision on a day when you don't absolutely have to if as advertised, they're bringing in a new man to replace Cliff Fletcher? It leads me to believe that maybe Cliff's going to be around longer than we think. Yeah, the Dave Nonis thing is out there, and that's a possibility, and he could well be named in a couple of weeks as general manager. But I think there's also a scenario whereby Cliff does the job for another year, and that this is his decision to replace the coach, and that maybe he's being told, go and conduct business as you see fit, and we'll let you know when the replacement's coming. It could be in 2 weeks, could be in 2 months, it could be in a year.
The only thing that confuses me is why Henry Samueli doesn't just let Brian Burke talk to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's pretty clear that he wants to move on, and it's going to be tough for them to go another year. They already had some problems with it this year. A whole other year with this hanging over their heads. It's crazy.
You have to know that if you're Bob Murray, the assistant general manager in Anaheim, and the rest of their group there, they've got to be a little concerned as well, saying, boy, this is just going to hang over us for another year. Let's move on here.
If Dave Nonis ends up in Toronto in whatever title you want to call it, Brian Burke becomes the ultimate lame duck general manager. Absolutely.
And you're bang on, because we've already had months of the speculation of Brian Burke coming to Toronto. Can you really go on for a full other year of it in Anaheim? We'll see.
Maurice was asked what he would say to the new coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was a two-word answer: good luck. If you heard just that response from Maurice's post-firing news conference, you'd think the guy was coming away bitter following his time in the center of the universe. But as James Cybulski found out, Maurice, he's anything but.
Knowing, had I 2 years ago in May, that we would go through the trials that we went through, that we'd miss the playoffs by a point and grind our way through another season with all the other things that went on leading to my dismissal, I still have taken this job in a heartbeat.
A day after being dismissed from what he once called his dream job, Paul Maurice held his head up high as he addressed reporters. Leafs interim general manager Cliff Fletcher initially said he wouldn't be the one to decide Maurice's fate, but clearly that changed. But while some questioned the timing of the dismissal, Maurice says he wasn't surprised.
Disappointed, clearly. You want to be part of that change, and I think that is part of the allure of the Toronto Maple Leafs, because when it happens, and it's going to happen, this is going to be an exceptional place. But surprised, no, because it was speculated occasionally.
His only regret? Watching the man who hired him, John Ferguson Jr., face the same fate earlier in the year. So what now for Maurice? Another head coaching gig at the NHL level if he has his say, but he essentially dismissed the idea of being an NHL assistant.
I think you have to have a certain personality for it to be good at it. I don't know that I have that.
And given the amount of games behind the bench at the NHL level, the AHL doesn't seem like the way to go either. Critics point to his teams making the postseason only 3 times during his coaching career. When asked to defend his record, his answer was simple.
The teams never quit, ever.
One day after former Canucks boss Dave Nonis' name popped up as a potential candidate, TSN has now learned that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment have approached the San Jose Sharks looking for permission to speak with their general manager Doug Wilson, only to have that request denied. Now, if nothing else, Leaf fans can find solace in the fact that the search for a new leader is well underway. James Cybulski, TSN, Toronto.